In conversation yesterday with the former Foreign Minister Shlomo Ben Ami, Shlomo told me that this Security Council vote, sir, is a turning point in the war. He said America is clearly fed up and Netanyahu is a threat to Israel's security. Some strong key lines there. What's your view?
Well, I believe that the decision of Netanyahu to criticize the American administration and President Biden himself in such a way is inconceivable. I mean, I personally, I don't understand what is he doing. The only explanation, which I'm not sure is right, is that he is talking to his base. He knows that he lost his popularity. His popularity is really the lowest ever. And he wants to have the support of his base, and maybe his base is happy when Israel is confronting the United States, but it is very stupid and unjustified. I really hope that he will be replaced in elections, and the sooner the better. He is too long there, and he made huge mistakes. He is considered today by many the worst prime minister we ever had, and we deserve a better one.
Do you think that elections could be called in Israel as a result of the sentiment that you've described on the ground there?
It might be an accumulation of different things. One is really eminent, and this is the crisis that may happen in the coming days. With the ultra-religious party on the basis against the background of the exemption from the military service that they have. They want to continue and be free of any military service while the Supreme Court cannot accept it. And here there might be a real crisis in which Netanyahu might lose his majority in the parliament. Another option is or parallel to it is a general public resentment and demonstrations, as we had in the last year against the background of another crisis, which was the attempt of the rightist government of Netanyahu to overrule the Supreme Court. I think that this kind of a combination of political difficulties and public resentment may cause a change in government before the elections, which will take place according to the term of this government only in more than 2 years from now.
Indeed, something significant would have to happen on the ground in order to effectively oust Netanyahu from the role at this point. But, sir, I wanted to pivot the conversation back over to the UN Security Council vote, because this is highly consequential in terms of what Israel does next. On this issue, the United States interprets the resolution as non-binding. Of course, all Security Council resolutions are binding. So what does this mean for Israel's war and its Rafah incursion in real terms, in your view?
It is true that since the decision was taken in the context of the sixth article of the UN Covenant, and not at the seventh article, it is not binding legally, but politically it does have an impact, no doubt, and different countries may interpret this resolution the way they want. It doesn't make the Israeli government's activities and the Israeli army's activities easier. And I think that by the end of the day, it will have to take into account such a decision. The fact that today Israel is negotiating in a way with the United States the military operation, the future military operation in the south of the Gaza Strip, is significant, and eventually it might have an impact on the kind of Israeli operation, which is apparently imminent, unless there is a solution for the for the hostages issue. And as we see now, there is a crisis in the indirect negotiations with the Hamas about their release. And it is really crazy. I mean, they are keeping people, babies, 1-year-old babies, as hostages. So it's a lunatic situation, one must admit. I mean, to speak about murderers who are asked to be released from jail for babies who were kidnapped by lunatics. It's not the classical situation of two armies fighting each other and exchanging hostages and whatever. And in this crazy situation, one must act. I don't envy Netanyahu, but I don't understand him.
So let me ask you this. We've already heard from the foreign minister and the defense minister in Israel who say they will continue to fight on until all hostages are released. But at the same time, there's a clear rift emerging between the United States and Israel now. And you could argue that Israel is looking increasingly diplomatically isolated on the world stage as a result. If this Rafah incursion goes ahead, what are the consequences for Israel globally? Could we perhaps see weapon sales, ammunition, military support being curbed by the United States, or further diplomatic isolation as a result? What would happen if Israel contravenes this UN Security Council order now?
Well, I believe that Israel cannot afford it, and that such a scenario will not take place. I mean, it is not possible for Israel to confront the United States, especially after the last months in which the United States and the Biden administration helped Israel so much and maybe even saved Israel. So you have today a very, very strange situation. On the one hand, Israel for sure is the victim of a crazy attack, and immediately after few days it became the Goliath and the one which is criticized by the whole world, and the United States, which and the president who came to us and promised to help and did help in a very significant way, is becoming in no time the nemesis. It's very difficult to understand why did it happen, and I cannot believe that Israel will not take into consideration the last diplomatic developments and continue a confrontation with our best friend.
What happens next, Yossi, as we look at this situation continuing to unfold, what is clearly a crisis in Israel and, of course, international condemnation of its conduct in this war? How do you expect this to be resolved, and what does the timeline look like?
Well, first of all, this war takes too long. And of course, it is a war between a regular army and a terrorist group which has an area, a land on which it works and operates. It cannot go on forever. So I think that the very important offer of the Biden administration for a solution, a much bigger solution rather than the concrete solution now, but a solution in which all the hostages are freed, we end the military confrontation, and there is another force in the world, which may be the Palestinian Authority that Netanyahu opposes wrongly, or a consortium of Arab countries with the assistance of the United States, taking upon itself the Gaza Strip. Hamas is not governing the Gaza Strip. anymore, which is the main target, or should have been the main target of this military confrontation, to prevent Hamas from continuing to govern the Gaza Strip, and then direct negotiations between us and the PLO about the solution, which is the only solution which exists, and this is the two-state solution. It may be in the context of a confederation or another context, but the two-state solution is the only solution that we have.